Mick McCarthy, on the other hand, would you like 2 terms? He was asked at one stage, and he basically said, who doesn't want 2 terms? But I knew that wasn't the case, so I accepted it and was fine with it. I mean, okay, so give us your initial thoughts on McCarthy for 2 years, to be followed no matter what.
I know.
No matter what, by Stephen Kenny.
Dream scenario is, of course, that we do well at the Euros, whatever it would be, and Mick walks away, probably from his point of view, goes into, enhances his credential, goes into another job. That's maybe what it would be. But I think if Mick did well at the Euros, then he would want, I would be convinced, to take the job forward, going to a World Cup. Of course he'd want to lead the side into a World Cup, which is difficult in itself anyway. We know it's difficult to get to a World Cup with the amount of places. So it seems strange to me that Mick has agreed to do it. That it's only essentially, it could be a year, couldn't it? It could be a year's job for him if and when, however it works out. So surprised, very, very surprised at it all. Very, very surprised the way it unfolded. We spoke last week, haven't we? Said, look, both managers would be very, very good, and all of a sudden the 2 names are catapulted in there, and they've both got the job essentially. It's a difficult scenario, difficult position, I think, for both he and Kenny, I think, with this one. Yeah. It is. That's the way.
How much of a dream scenario is it if, I mean, just to use your phrase there, if they get to the Euros and things go very well and there's a brilliant chemistry between Mick and the players?
Yeah.
How much of a dream scenario is it then if we have to say, well, that's now ending, and we're going to hope that the next man in, Stephen Kenny, is going to pick up where Mick left off, and you've got players around the time of the Euros doing the odd interview, and what will they be asked in every interview? Well, would they be asked, would you like Mick to stay? And several of them will come out and say, yeah, to be honest, I would. And so the key point is this: why, in any governance, when you're planning out strategy, would you limit your options? Like, that is the first question Don Delaney needs to be asked here. You have, in a sport where a month is a long time, 90 minutes is a long time. Look at O'Neill pre and post the 5-1 defeat to Denmark. Why would you limit your options? Why have you limited the options strategically of everyone involved?
And
what if Chris Hughton comes available in 2 years and says, I'm desperate for the job? What if Stephen Kenny doesn't go great with the under-21s?
What if it goes? You've got to look. You're looking at it, and you're looking at every scenario that can happen, every which way. It goes horribly wrong for Mick. We lose the first 3 or 4 games, sends you out of the qualification. Then, what will the clamour be?
Get Stephen Kenny in right away.
Kenny straight away. As you say, the opposite of that is if it goes unbelievably well, then we'll be saying, what is the point in doing this? I mean, it's great for Stephen Kenny, and he certainly deserves to be in with the shout of getting the job. I think we said that with what he's done within his coaching career to date, with the success that he's had, particularly at Dundalk. I think, we were saying last week, there's no issue with anyone if he was to take the job. But it's...
and what's this business of what's Kenny going to do for the next 2 years that actually makes him a better candidate?
I
mean, so there's talk of they're a team and he's going to learn from Mick.
The clear thought is, from the FAI's point of view, is that he was a candidate this time round, and with a little bit more international experience in whatever form that may come, he would be an even more suitable candidate 2 years down the line when Mick McCarthy's contract just happens to expire.
So is he better off managing the under-21 team, or is he better off managing against Zenit St. Petersburg and other teams in the Europa League?
Well, the criticism of League of Ireland teams, especially when they went into Europe, and why they fell down, particularly this year, is a matter of the Dundalk syndrome. Is that essentially there were only 2 real top-class teams in the league for the past couple of years in Dundalk and Cork. So by playing against each other and then lesser sides for the intervening 7-8 weeks, they weren't necessarily going to progress well enough to go in Europe. Whereas now they've detached him from all that. He's going to get a sense of what international football is like at a certain level, and will be able to take the next step up after that.
And he'll get used to working within the structure of the FAI as well. That's another thing, isn't it?
Which you'd imagine probably needs a bit of getting used to before you're slung in there anyway.
Yeah, I think it would.
Ideally,
it'd be different. It'd be totally different for him. Get used to the players. Of course, that's another good thing for him. I mean, what we've said is, both managers have accepted the terms anyway. Both managers have gone for it. It's great to say. It's great for Stephen Kenny that he will eventually get the job. In his own words, it's in the contract. It's down in writing. I will be taking the job in a couple of years' time, or 18 months' time, or whenever it's going to be. But it's it does seem flawed. There are flaws. That's the way that I would see with it. I think realistically, as I said last week, and Matt Doherty has said it himself. Saw some quotes from Matt Doherty. The respect that they've got for Mick would be instantaneous. I'm convinced he'll get a kick from the players. I'm sure he'll get a bounce from them straight away. He does have that presence. He does have an aura about him, and you know. What is an aura? What is it? I don't know. I can't. But Mick certainly has got that little bit of factor in him. Presence that brings the best out in people. And I'm convinced that the team will get a kick from that straight away.
Yeah, but none of these things are the issue.
No,
this is. I mean.
But I know what you're saying.
This is a fudge job, really. And you have to look at the situation a week ago. There's a petition that 20,000 people have signed questioning the CEO. Brian Kerr's on the radio questioning the CEO in the most blatant terms. You've got Niall Quinn on outlining a vision. Andy Townsend's had a go. Liam Brady said maybe John Delaney should resign. So you got all this floating around, and you're the CEO, and you're making this decision, and there's a really strong cohort that you need to get on side who want Stephen Kenny.
Yeah.
And then there's another batch of people who want Mick McCarthy. And you're in a sticky situation. This is a sticky situation you're in. This was as sticky a situation as Delaney has been in some time. And so are you honestly telling me that has not dictated what he's done here?
It seems the sensible thing to do would be to have this situation in place, but not have a fixed limit on where McCarthy finishes up.
Like
to have Kenny installed as under-21 manager with the knowledge that if and when Mick goes / decides to step away, you will be next in line. Now that might take 2 years, that might take 5 years, that might take 8, whatever. You stay in place. This gig is yours.
I've no problem with the board. You've no problem with the board sitting around and saying, why don't we potentially go for a McCarthy for 2 years and then Kenny to follow, with the option of McCarthy doing 4 if things go really well, and let's hit the ground running for the next World Cup campaign and not have a new manager.
You can't do that because Kenny would go screw you.
Yes, and so you want Kenny because Kenny gets a certain amount of people on side.
Yeah, that's
so it's
case,
political.
Isn't it?
It's political what's happened here.
Well, as you said before, of course it is pleasing. It is pleasing everybody, isn't it? Really, it says, you know, we know Mick McCarthy's done the job. But that's safe pair of hands.
But like any appointment is political.
You're also.
So is it good for the senior international team?
Oh, do you know what? You think about initially. My initial thoughts was I can get on board with this. This is great. But then all of a sudden you think about it, and there's so many things that can go wrong with it. Or can go right. Essentially, if it goes right, it can go wrong.
No, totally.
You know what I mean?
Look, I mean,
if it goes right for the team, if it goes so right for the team,
if we're in danger of going to your Nations League qualification.
No, but do you understand what I'm saying? That if it goes brilliantly on the pitch, everything's going so smoothly with the players are taking to what Mick's doing over 2 years, then that's going to go wrong for the FAI. That's the thing. It's going to go wrong for the plan, the master plan. And I even saw Stephen Kenny today saying it's great that if the team do well at the Euros, I'm taking over a confident side. But then you go into a whole different mindset when realistically the team should be building towards something, towards a World Cup essentially.
But you'd imagine, and hopefully touch wood and all that kind of stuff, he'd not have enough cop on Kenny himself that while he is working with the under-21s, he will be shadowing Mick to a certain degree, and he will be seeing what's going on the training pitch with the senior team, with the knowledge that I am going to take this and implement my ideas upon that, and hopefully the two will coalesce into a winning outfit.
Would you be sure all that's been worked out, would you? Considering that the two of them met for the first time in 15 years last night, would you be sure that's all been worked out before this was agreed?
I wouldn't say it could be worked out, but I say that's eventually what is going to happen.
I mean, you hope, you think, maybe, because it makes sense, but has any of this made sense? So what are you presuming? That suddenly it's all going to start making sense?
I can't understand how he's going to be able to shut him.
I just can't believe
this. How's he going to be able to shut him though, Rich? If he's taking the 21 job, we know full well that the 21s invariably play on the same night as the senior side, or certainly if they're travelling round. So he's not necessarily going to be around the training ground, or it would be limited for the time he'd be able to spend on the training ground with Mick. So that wouldn't happen. And you know other thing as well, Robbie Keane has got an eye on coaching further down the line. Is Robbie Keane going to be able to work with Stephen Kenny? Simply, he's indicated that he wanted to work with Mick. He's getting involved. Now again, you're looking at other ways, but Robbie's trying to enhance his coaching career. How would that work in 4 years' time or 2 years' time?
I think Kenny has to be there to pick his backroom staff.
Of course he has to. He has to, just as Mick's done. Mick is bringing in Terry Connor simply because of the relationship they've got. They've got each other's back. They know each other's work. Your assistant essentially has to be that man that you know full well.
The positioning of Keane is more questionable, to be fair. I mean, somebody who essentially approached McCarthy, who was the potential new manager, and went, give us a coaching gig, and he went, you cheeky so-and-so, and then gets him involved. Like, to what end? Like, it remains pretty much undefined what he's actually going to be doing. We know Connor's his coach, his right-hand man, his assistant manager going back a decade now.
Mick was saying yesterday he'll haven't watching lots of games for a start, and that his input as a younger member of the coaching staff, I think Mick's turning 60 and Terry Connor is 56, he was saying yesterday. So he said, I quite like the idea of a younger person involved.
I've got no problem with that.
No big issue with that, to be honest.
I don't think Robbie won't be overly hands-on. I'm sure he'll be doing little drills with the team. It'll be little bits of coaching sessions, but predominantly, as it has been even when Brian was manager and Chris Shuton was involved. We had a brilliant coach in Chris Shuton, but day to day Chris would be doing the coaching, but Brian would be doing all the tactical stuff, all the work on the team, if I'm just reverting it back like that. Whereas he had Noel O'Reilly that was around with him as well. Noel O'Reilly didn't do an awful lot of coaching, but he was there, eyes and ears on the squad, keeping an eye on everything for Brian. That's what essentially what Robbie will do. I would imagine so. And also, Robbie will have a massive influence on those players. The younger players definitely will. If, as we're led to believe, as Mick said yesterday, he wants to try and get Declan Rice back on board. What harm would it have? What would be he'd have Robbie Keane ringing Declan Rice, and if that were to be the case, you know.
So no issue with that. The biggest issue is that they've straitjacketed themselves here. It just doesn't make any sense beyond the political scenario that was facing Delaney last week.
Yeah. Problems have gone away for 4 years. In his
kind of. Yeah, because even if things don't go great under McCarthy, he can say, well, it's part of a wider plan. You deliberately used the word vision and pathway several times yesterday.
You were asking there, that any other nations done it? I think Germany did it in, was it 06, I think?
Germany beforehand were looking to appoint Christoph Daum as their manager and had him in place. He got involved in a couple of transgressions off the field, and they ended up having to give Rudi Voller, who was the caretaker at the time, the job permanently, and went from there.
They did it with Jurgen Löw as well, but they had him as part of the first team setup. That was what he was doing. Was he doing the 21s? I'm not too sure.
Löw was definitely Klinsmann's assistant.
Yeah, that was it. So and with the they knew it was a natural succession. Holland have done it as well. The Netherlands have done it on over the last while as well, but. How again? We are totally.
Was that with Van Gaal and Danny Blind?
Yeah, Van Gaal.
Connor says here, Holland did this with Van Gaal and Danny Blind. It was a disaster. This makes no sense.
Blind was a disaster because to be fair, Holland was struggling as well.
Somebody else.
Blind had no record as a head coach either, really.
What if Stephen Kenny has a disaster with the under-21s? Does he still get the job regardless? Ridiculous decision, says Kieran Core.
Yeah, but is he going to be judging that 21? Well, he's been given the senior job, so he's not going to be judging the 21 job, is he?
Yeah, but there will be a clamour if Mick starts off the Euro 2020 qualifiers badly to the point where 3, 4, 5 games in it looks very unlikely that Ireland will qualify. There will then be a clamour to get Stephen Kenny in, the fair logic being, well, he's going to be in anyway, let's give him every chance possible to be able to hit the ground running for the World Cup qualification. So even though Mick said, I don't see him as a threat in any way, I guarantee you 3, 4 games in, if things aren't going well, then that will become another conversation which will be unhelpful.
I think it will
created here.
I think Mick will certainly know that himself. He knows how it works. So it's that is the thing overall with it. Yeah, that both have taken the job. And again, before I go back to my point before, there's so many different things that could happen here along the way. It's not a natural transition. It's not going to be a natural in 2 years' time. As I said, if it goes well, then essentially the FAI will be having questions, the players will be getting asked questions, as you say earlier on. So it's a strange one. It is a strange one. The more I've thought about it and how it can actually work out going forward,
I'm not sure what I think the best scenario for everyone is they just about make the Euros, don't do too well, and then everyone says, okay, fair enough.
I think,
I think that's about the best scenario.
Which is probably the most likely scenario as well.
Potentially.
This idea that we're going to the Euros and getting to a semi-final is slightly fantastical.
Duffer was on Morning Ireland. I was Jenna Fleck before the Duffer, and he said, this is a bit unheard of. I find it strange, a bit mad. There are so many what ifs. What if Mick does amazingly well, gets to the Euros, the quarters, the semis? Then he has to stay on. I'd like to know what's in the small print. I can see Mick doing well, and for him to walk away after 2 great years, crazy stuff. The small print is unequivocal. Mick is gone. Stephen Kenny starts in August 2020, no matter what happens.
Damien knows the impact that Mick will have on the players, and I'm convinced that's going to be the case. So that's why he's thinking that, as I feel the same, Mick will have an immediate impact on that squad. I do think that, and I think they'll get a kick. And then we're asking the questions of why aren't we going to be having Mick McCarthy potentially, if we hopefully we get to the Euro, touch where everything's fine with that, then potentially why isn't Mick McCarthy taking us to Qatar?
The Newsround is brought to you this evening with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. So, I mean, what an amazing 2-3 days here for...
Don't think we've known anything like it.
Yeah, the national team. So.